Ladies and gentlemen, the journey of mother wound healing begins in silence. It begins in the places we often avoid, the quiet spaces of our hearts where we have hidden our longing for love, our ache for acceptance, and the confusion that stems from a mother's inability to fully see us. The mother wound is not about blame, it's about truth. It is about naming the pain that shaped us, the emotional patterns that unconsciously direct our choices, and the longing for nurturing that may never have been fulfilled. For many, the mother wound is a scar from childhood that whispers lies into adulthood. You are not enough. You must earn love. Your emotions are too much. These lies were not born from cruelty, but often from generations of unhealed pain. A mother who never received tenderness cannot give what she never had. But even so, the wound remains, and if left unacknowledged, it becomes the invisible hand guiding how we relate to ourselves, to others, and to God. Healing this wound requires courage. It demands honesty. To truly begin the process, we must allow ourselves to feel what we were once too afraid or too young to feel: anger, sadness, longing, even grief. This is not about staying in pain, it's about walking through it, hand in hand with a loving God who already knows every fracture in your heart. He does not turn away from your tears. He collects them. He transforms them. Mother wound healing is not a linear process. It comes in wave, sometimes soft, sometimes overwhelming. One moment you feel empowered, the next you are questioning everything. That is okay. Healing isn't neat, it's holy, and holiness often looks like brokenness brought before the light. When you speak the truth, I was hurt, I was unseen, I needed more. You are not being weak. You are being reborn. For many women, this healing brings them back to their inner child, the little girl who needed to be held, heard, and honored. She's still within you, waiting. And for many men, this healing allows them to finally soften, to feel what they were taught to suppress, and to realize that strength is not found in silence, but in surrender. Healing the mother wound does not mean your mother becomes someone she never was. It means you become who you were always meant to be free, whole, and unburdened. There is divine healing available for wounds too deep for words. The Word Himself became flesh to meet us in our pain, not just to soothe it, but to transform it. Through faith, prayer, and deep inner work, the mother wound can be a sacred passage, not a prison. You are not meant to carry this pain forever. God wants to lift it from you, layer by layer, truth by truth, until what remains is not bitterness, but wisdom, not resentment, but grace. You may find as you heal, you begin to mother yourself, to offer comfort, kindness, and protection to the parts of you that never received it. And in doing so, you begin to rewire your inner world. You begin to see that your worth is not tied to what you were given or denied. You were worthy from the beginning, because God called you worthy. This is the invitation. Face the truth. Honor the pain. Let God into the parts of your heart you were taught to hide. The mother wound may be one of your deepest hurts, but it can also become your greatest source of compassion, strength, and spiritual power. You are not alone in this healing. You are being led by the one who knew your name before you were born, who saw your tears before they fell, and who whispers even now, "You are mine, and I will make you whole." That is where true mother wound healing begins, in truth, in faith, and in the arms of divine love. Emotional trauma from a mother is one of the deepest, most invisible wounds a person can carry. It's a wound that often goes unspoken, misunderstood, or minimized, not just by others, but by those who live with it every day. Society teaches us to revere our mothers without question, to believe that all mothers love unconditionally, but for many, the experience of motherhood was a mixture of emotional neglect, manipulation, or inconsistency that shaped their view of self and relationships in painful, long-lasting ways. The trauma does not always come from overt abuse. It can be quiet and subtle. A mother who withdrew her affection when you didn't perform, a mother who made your emotions about her pain, A mother who never truly saw you, only the reflection of what she wanted you to be. These moments accumulate over time, imprinting messages deep in your psyche. Messages like "I'm too much," "I'm never enough," or "love must be earned." This emotional trauma can show up later in life as self-doubt, anxiety, difficulty forming close relationships, people-pleasing tendencies, or emotional numbness. You might find yourself chasing validation from others, repeating cycles of abandonment, or constantly feeling like you're not truly lovable. And yet, the root cause might be buried so deep in childhood, you don't even realize it's still controlling you. Facing the truth of emotional trauma from your mother is painful. It's disorienting. It often feels like betrayal, especially if your mother also carried unhealed wounds of her own. But healing cannot begin until truth is welcomed. You must be willing to say, "Yes, I was hurt," not to blame but to release, not to dwell but to rebuild. One of the hardest truths is that many mothers love their children but are incapable of emotionally nurturing them. They love in the only way they know how, through control, sacrifice, or silence. But love without safety, without empathy, without attunement, still leaves a wound, and the child inside you remembers. Healing emotional trauma from your mother begins with acknowledgement. It begins with allowing yourself to feel the grief that was never processed, the grief of what you needed but never received. This kind of healing is spiritual work. It cannot be done through logic alone. It requires surrender. It requires faith. God, in His divine wisdom, meets us in the places no one else can see. When we open the hidden places of our pain to Him, He does not shame us. He does not minimize our suffering. He comforts. He restores. He tells us we were never wrong for wanting love. He begins to rewrite the script that was written by wounded hands. As you begin to heal, you will notice a shift. You'll begin to parent yourself with the love you always craved. You'll learn to say, "My emotions matter, my needs are sacred, my voice is important." And slowly you will take back your identity from the shadow of your mother's unmet expectations. This isn't about rejecting your mother. It's about reclaiming yourself. And sometimes it's only through this honest, courageous process that reconciliation becomes truly possible, not a reconciliation based on denial or pretense, but one rooted in truth, boundaries, and grace. You are not weak for feeling this pain. You are strong for facing it. You are not broken beyond repair. You are being remade by truth, by courage, and by the healing power of God. You can't heal until you face the truth. But when you do, a new life begins, one where you are no longer defined by your mother's limitations, but by your own wholeness. You are not the wound, you are the healing. Let that truth become your freedom. Facing childhood pain is one of the most courageous things a person can do, especially when that pain comes from the very person meant to nurture and protect you, your mother. For many, this pain is confusing, buried under years of denial, guilt, and the illusion that everything was fine. But the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Emotional wounds from childhood linger in our adult lives, showing up in our relationships, our self-worth, our patterns of anxiety or avoidance, and our inability to feel truly safe, either with others or within ourselves. The mother wound is a specific kind of childhood pain. It is not always violent or loud. Often it is subtle, a quiet absence of emotional connection, a harsh tone repeated too many times, expectations that felt impossible to meet, or affection that was given conditionally. A child internalizes these experiences. They don't understand that the mother is broken or unhealed herself. Instead, the child assumes, "There must be something wrong with me," and so the cycle begins. You grow into an adult who feels like love has to be earned, that emotions must be hidden to keep the peace, that you should never take up too much space. You may become hyper, independent or clingy, avoidant or overly accommodating. You may struggle with trust or feel a deep, nameless sadness. These aren't flaws. They are symptoms of a wound that has never had the space to breathe. Facing childhood pain means breaking that silence. It means looking at your past not to get stuck there, but to understand how it shaped you. It means letting go of the defense mechanisms you created for survival, because they are no longer needed. Most importantly, it means letting God into the places you've tried to protect for so long. This process is uncomfortable. It stirs up grief, anger, confusion, and sometimes even guilt, but it also brings clarity. It reveals that you are not crazy, not dramatic, not too sensitive. You were wounded. And the only way to truly heal is to stop pretending otherwise. Faith becomes an anchor during this time. When everything inside feels chaotic or uncertain, the presence of God offers steadiness. He sees the child in you who didn't get what she needed. He holds space for your pain without judgment, and he gently shows you that this wound does not have to define you. What was once broken can become whole. What was once a source of shame can become a wellspring of compassion and strength. Real healing happens when you stop minimizing your childhood experience, when you stop saying, "It wasn't that bad," and start telling the truth. "It hurt, I needed more, I didn't feel safe." These admissions are not dishonoring your mother, they are honoring yourself. And when you do this work, you don't just heal for you. You heal for the generations before you who never could, and for the ones who come after you who won't have to. Facing childhood pain is the first step toward reclaiming your power. It's how you learn to parent yourself in ways you were never parented. It's how you begin to make decisions based on love rather than fear, truth rather than survival. And it's how you finally start living, not as a victim of your past, but as a co-creator of your future. You don't have to carry the weight of unspoken pain any longer. You don't have to pretend it didn't affect you. You can face it with honesty, with faith, and with the absolute assurance that God is not only walking with you through the valley, but He is also preparing a table for you on the other side. The truth may hurt at first, but it is the only thing that can truly set you free. There is a child within each of us, soft, wide-eyed, and desperate to be seen. That inner child holds the earliest memories of who we are, unfiltered by society, untouched by shame. But for many, that child was never truly allowed to be. Instead of safety, they were met with criticism. Instead of affection, they were handed silence. Instead of being celebrated, they were expected to be small, obedient, or perfect. And when the wounds came from a mother, the first face of love, it cut the deepest. Inner child healing begins with one radical act: acknowledgement. You must see the child within you, the one who tried so hard to be enough, the one who tried to earn her mother's love with good grades, quiet tears, or by becoming the caretaker far too early. That child doesn't need to be fixed. She needs to be heard. She needs to know that the love she longed for was not withheld because she was unworthy, but because the woman who raised her didn't know how to give what she herself never received. Many adults walk around carrying invisible burdens. They become high achievers, perfectionists, people pleasers, or they retreat into isolation, afraid to be vulnerable, afraid to trust. These patterns are not random. They are survival strategies, crafted in childhood to protect the heart from pain it didn't know how to process. The inner child wasn't allowed to feel angry, so the adult now suppresses emotion. The inner child was told to toughen up, so the adult doesn't know how to soften into intimacy. This is the mother wound in motion, but here is the truth. You are allowed to go back for that child. You are allowed to become what she needed. Inner child healing is not about blame. It is about restoration. It's about walking into the abandoned rooms of your past, finding the little girl crying in the corner, and saying to her, "I see you now. You matter, and I'm never leaving you again." Faith is essential in this journey. Because sometimes the grief is too deep. Sometimes you don't know how to love yourself, because no one ever taught you. That's where divine healing steps in. God becomes the parent your soul always craved. He speaks tenderly where others were cruel. He covers you with grace where others shamed you. He gives you the strength to face memories that once broke you, not so you stay broken, but so you can finally be made whole. This healing is not quick. It comes in layers. You may cry over things you didn't even realize hurt you. You may feel anger toward your mother, followed by guilt, confusion, or even love. All of it is welcome. All of it is healing. The inner child doesn't need you to have all the answers. She just needs your presence. She needs your honesty. She needs your promise that this time she won't be abandoned. As you heal, your world will begin to shift. You'll start setting boundaries you never could before. You'll stop begging for love in places that only offer pain. You'll begin to nurture yourself with the tenderness you were once denied. And most beautifully, you'll realize you were never broken. You were just waiting for someone to believe in you. Let that someone be you. Inner child healing is the foundation of all deep transformation. It's how we break cycles. It's how we return to ourselves. It's how we finally become free. So go back, sit with her, hold her hand, and let God do what only He can do. Restore, redeem, and resurrect the pieces of you that never should have been lost. Spiritual recovery from the mother wound is not just a journey of psychological healing. It is a sacred path of coming home to yourself. When a woman experiences pain at the hands of the very person meant to love, nurture, and protect her, her mother, it creates a deep, complex fracture within her spirit. This wound goes beyond unmet needs or harsh words. It touches the core of her identity, shaping how she sees herself, how she receives love, and even how she perceives God. For many, the mother wound is invisible. It hides behind success, people, pleasing, perfectionism, or emotional detachment. Some women carry it silently for decades, believing their pain is invalid because their childhood looked normal on the outside. Others know the ache well but feel trapped in guilt or fear, afraid that naming the wound is a betrayal of the woman who gave them life. But the truth must be faced. Love that is inconsistent, conditional, or rooted in control leaves lasting damage. Spiritual recovery begins when you no longer pretend that it didn't hurt. It begins the moment you look into the mirror and admit that, while your mother may have done her best still left you feeling unseen, unheard, and unloved. This isn't about blame, it's about liberation. You cannot heal what you continue to deny, and you cannot rise while still carrying a silent legacy of emotional suppression. God calls you to wholeness, not silence. He calls you to truth, not pretending. He knew your pain long before you had the words to speak it. Spiritual recovery invites you to lay your wounds before Him, not polished, not minimized, but raw and real. It's about letting divine love pour into places where maternal love failed. It's about knowing that even if your earthly mother couldn't hold you, your heavenly Father never let go. This journey may begin in grief. You may grieve the mother you never had, the safety you never knew, the tenderness you longed for. But grief is holy when it leads to truth. It cracks open the hardened parts of your heart and makes space for something new. In that space, God whispers your true identity, not the one shaped by a broken lineage, but the one rooted in divine purpose. You are not too damaged, you are not too much, and you are not alone. Generations before you carried this same pain and had no tools to name it, but you chosen, called, and awakened. Have the courage to break the cycle. Your healing is not just for you, it is a spiritual reclamation for your bloodline. Every step you take in truth is a step toward redemption for those who came before and those who will follow. You may never receive the apology you deserve. Your mother may never change, but that doesn't have to stop your healing. Spiritual recovery is about choosing love, even when the source of pain cannot love you back. It's about releasing resentment, not because she earned forgiveness, but because your spirit deserves peace. The most powerful act you can make is to parent yourself with the love you were denied. Speak life over the little girl within you. Let her know she is worthy, safe, and deeply loved, not because of what she does, but simply because she exists. And let the presence of God be your daily reminder that you were never forsaken. Spiritual recovery from the mother wound is not linear. It will take time. Some days you will feel strong, others you may feel broken. But through it all, grace will carry you, and when you rise, as you surely will, you'll rise not as a wounded child, but as a healed woman held by God and reborn in truth. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when it must look backward, not to dwell, but to understand. For many women, that moment is defined by the realization that their deepest emotional struggles did not begin in adulthood, but in childhood. More specifically, they trace back to a sacred wound that is rarely spoken about with honesty, the mother wound. And when this wound is confronted not with bitterness, but with faith, the journey becomes one of transformation, redemption, and emotional healing at its deepest level. Faith-based emotional healing begins with the truth. Not the sugar-coated version, not the one we use to protect our families or uphold the illusion of a normal childhood. It begins with the courage to say, yes, my mother loved me, but she also wounded me. This is not an act of betrayal. It is an act of liberation. Because unspoken pain remains active in our lives, it shapes how we love, how we trust, how we speak to ourselves in the silence. The mother wound is not just about what was done, but what was absent, unspoken love, missing comfort, withheld affection, and silent expectations. And here is where faith enters, not just as a belief, but as a lifeline. Faith tells us we are not alone, that our suffering has meaning, that even if we were not held as children, we are being held now by something greater than human love. Faith tells us that God saw every tear, every moment of confusion, every ache that went unnoticed, and He did not turn away. When we face the truth about the mother wound, we don't just uncover pain, we uncover the places where we need God the most. These are the cracks where divine light enters. Through faith, we are allowed to grieve what was lost and hope for what is yet to come. The faith-based path says, you were not crazy, you were not too sensitive. You were a child who needed love, and now you are an adult who can receive it in new, sacred ways. True emotional healing happens when we allow God to parent us. When we invite Him into the abandoned places and say, show me who I am, not based on what I lacked, but based on what you've placed within me. The world teaches us to toughen up, to move on, to bury the pain. But the Spirit teaches us to feel, to forgive, and to resurrect. Healing becomes holy when it becomes a partnership with the divine. Forgiveness is part of this healing, but it doesn't come before truth. It comes after the truth is honored, felt, and spoken. Forgiveness in faith is not saying the pain didn't matter. It is saying the pain no longer defines you. It is saying, even though she couldn't love me the way I needed, I am still worthy of love. It is trusting that God will use even the wounds of the past to build something beautiful, and with healing comes transformation. You begin to speak to yourself more gently. You begin to mother your inner child with kindness, setting boundaries your own mother couldn't. You begin to see that your sensitivity is not a weakness. It is a gift, that your pain has forged empathy, strength, and wisdom that can now serve others. You no longer need to prove your worth. You no longer need to chase love. You return to the truth that you are already loved beyond measure. Faith-based emotional healing from the mother wound is a return to sacred truth. It is a journey that begins in pain but ends in freedom. And as you take each step through prayer, through truth, telling through surrender, you will discover a love that no earthly mother could ever replace, a love that heals, a love that restores, a love that was always waiting for you to come home. Breaking generational trauma is not just a personal decision. It is a sacred calling. For too long, pain has been passed down like an unwanted inheritance, hidden in silence, masked by smiles, and normalized by culture. And nowhere is this more evident than in the mother wound. The ache of abandonment, criticism, emotional neglect, or even overprotection, these are not just isolated events. They are patterns woven deep into family lines, rooted in generations that never had the language or the courage to heal. But when you decide to face the truth, you become the first light in a long line of darkness. Generational trauma thrives in denial. It survives when families say, "This is just how we are," or "She did her best," while never acknowledging the pain that shaped generations of daughters and mothers. But to break it, you must be brave enough to say no more. You must step into the discomfort of truth, not to cast blame, but to claim your freedom, because unhealed pain will continue to echo in your life and the lives of those who come after you, unless you interrupt the cycle. The mother wound is one of the most powerful sources of generational trauma. When a mother is disconnected from her own healing, she often projects her wounds onto her children. She may demand perfection because she never felt good enough. She may criticize because she was constantly judged. She may withhold love because no one ever taught her how to give it freely. And if you're her daughter, you likely internalize that pain as your identity, believing that your worth was conditional, that your voice was too loud, your feelings too much, or your dreams too big. But here's the truth: you were never the problem. You were simply the mirror that revealed the unhealed parts of your mother. And now you have the chance to do what she couldn't. You can stop the cycle. Breaking generational trauma means choosing awareness over autopilot. It means learning to respond with compassion instead of reacting from old wounds. It means mothering yourself with the love you never received. It means refusing to carry shame that doesn't belong to you. And most of all, it means allowing God to reparent you, to fill the gaps where human love failed. This isn't an easy road. At times, it will feel like betrayal. Guilt will whisper, "How dare you question your mother?" But grace will say, "How dare you abandon yourself?" You can honor your mother's humanity while still grieving what she couldn't give you. That's not rebellion. That's healing. When you break generational trauma, you don't just change your life. You change the legacy. Your children won't have to fight the same silent battles. Your relationships will become places of truth and trust, not control or fear. You'll teach your daughters that it's okay to feel, to speak, to say no, to shine. You'll show your sons what it means to respect women who know their worth. You'll become the proof that healing is possible. And you won't do it alone. God walks with those who choose truth. He strengthens those who are weary from carrying burdens that were never theirs to bear. He restores the years lost to emotional confusion and pain. When you cry, He hears. When you rise, He rejoices. He is the loving parent you always needed, and through Him, you will find the courage to end what others endured in silence. So stand firm, speak the truth. Love yourself enough to heal, because the moment you break the chain, heaven takes notice, and generations will thank you for having the strength to do what no one else could. Healing mother-daughter relationships is one of the most profound and sacred journeys a woman can take. It is not just about reconciliation with another person. It's about the restoration of something broken within yourself. So many daughters carry wounds that stem from unmet emotional needs, silent expectations, and generational patterns of pain. These wounds fester quietly, often unacknowledged, but they shape everything, from self-worth to trust, to the ability to form healthy relationships. The truth is, you cannot fully step into who you are until you face the truth about where the pain began. The mother-daughter bond is supposed to be a safe haven, a place where unconditional love teaches a girl how to become a woman. But what happens when that bond is filled with tension, silence, control, or emotional absence? What happens when the person who was supposed to nurture your soul was the one who unintentionally hurt it? For many women, this is not a question. It is their lived experience, and until this truth is faced, healing cannot begin. Healing starts with honesty, not accusation, not bitterness, but honest acknowledgement of what was missing, what was harmful, what left you feeling unworthy or invisible. You must give yourself permission to name the wound without shame. I needed her to be there for me emotionally, and she wasn't. I felt like I was never enough in her eyes. I was her emotional caretaker when I needed one myself. These are not betrayals, these are truths. And the truth will always set you free. But healing is not only about confronting your mother, it is about confronting the version of yourself that was shaped by her unhealed pain. Maybe you became a people pleaser because you feared rejection. Maybe you silenced your voice because she silenced hers. Maybe you overachieved just to earn a glimpse of her pride. When you see these patterns, you begin to realize the wound was real, but it doesn't have to define you. From this place of awareness, a choice emerges. Will you repeat the pattern, or will you become the one who breaks it? Will you stay in resentment, or will you choose the harder path, healing through love and grace? It is here that faith becomes your lifeline. You are not doing this alone. God is not only watching, He is guiding. He understands the pain of rejection, of betrayal, of being unseen. And He is ready to heal the parts of your heart that no human being could ever reach. Healing the mother-daughter relationship does not always mean reconciliation with your mother in the earthly sense. Sometimes she may not be willing or able to change, but healing can still happen within you. You can write the letter you never got to send. You can cry the tears you never felt safe to cry. You can forgive not to excuse the pain, but to release its hold on your future. Forgiveness does not say, "What you did was okay." It says, "I will no longer let your unhealed pain control my story." When healing does happen between mother and daughter, it is a holy miracle. It may begin with a simple conversation, a softening of the heart, a shared memory that opens the door to deeper truth. Sometimes it begins when the daughter goes first, when she models the emotional vulnerability that was once missing, and sometimes healing happens quietly in your own soul, with God holding space for every unspoken word. You are not destined to carry your mother's burden. You are not obligated to repeat her patterns. You are allowed to grieve, to feel, to let go. And you are worthy of love that is whole, tender, and true. As you heal, you become the mother you never had, first to yourself, and then to those you love. That is the beauty of this journey. It begins with pain, but it ends in freedom.